please sign it if you haven't. Thank you. Should we start showing it? No, we don't, no. Just, you're on the board, you don't have to. We expect that you're going to be here. Susan takes her own. All right, welcome everyone. This is the Hamilton County Solid Waste Policy Committee meeting of Wednesday, March 16, 2022. We're starting about on time. Thank you all for being here. I did want to note something, and we continue to work through what we think is the best way to handle the agenda and public comment is specifically related to our agenda. And I know we've gone back and forth a little bit on this. So Michelle and I had a conversation about this. So bear with us as we continue to think through what is the best way to solicit public comment. So as you can see, item number 3 is general public comment. And so that is for any issue that anybody would like to speak to generally related to solid waste. But then we're going to ask folks if they have a comment related to an agenda item, that they identify the agenda item so the comment's more relevant as we work our way through the agenda. So for instance, Tamara is going to speak today. He's going to speak to 6A. I will call him right before 6A comes forward. Just to, again, try to provide a little more continuity to the public comments related to the agenda item. So is that okay with everybody? That we're always trying new things just to try to make things more relevant. Okay, so that's how we're going to handle the agenda moving forward until we decide to do something different. All right, so with that, I'm going to go to clerk's report and approval of the minutes. I assume everyone has had a chance to look at the minutes. I will entertain a motion to approve, and then we'll have discussion if there is any. I so move.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion about the minutes? I'm going to just abstain because I wasn't here. Okay. I do want to say thank you for the exhaustive minutes that we received. Oh, my God. They're very thorough. All right. With no further discussion, I will entertain, we got the motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
Abstain. Oh, my heavens, we have a new member.
Yeah.
Matt Waller is our new member. He is a trustee from Colerain Township. Welcome to the group.
Thank you.
Would you like to say a word?
Sure, thanks. I'm excited to be here and happy to get working on things. Colerain Township trustee, and I teach during the day at Elder, and I'm in my last semester teaching at Miami, where I kind of hung up my shingle after 10 years of that. Too many jobs. And I'm happy to be here.
Okay, we're happy to have you. I'm sorry I neglected to notice you.
And I love the purple marker, thank you.
Oh, very good.
AP World History, AP Government.
Cool. Very good. Tomorrow it will be a green Sharpie.
There you go.
For the record. Don't want to jump the gun. All right, so we'll move on to item number 3. So general comment. So I know we have someone online that would like to make a comment. Is it specific to an agenda item, or is it a general comment?
We asked and she did not say. Is that
Yeah, I asked in the comments, but we could have her.
All right, well, why don't we go ahead and have her go right now then? Who is it?
Her name is Ellen McGrath.
Ellen?
Hi.
Ellen McGrath. Hey, how are you? Good to see you. You've got the floor.
Yes.
Are you commenting relative to an agenda item or just in general?
I do not know how to look at the agenda. So what I have is a request for your budget, for the proposed budget for the Westwood Dora District.
All right, let's go. Ellen, welcome. We generally have comments for 3 minutes. So why don't you go ahead and provide us with the comment? Thank you for being here.
All right. Good afternoon. I am Ellen McGrath, a resident of Westwood and member of our new Dora District Committee. We are a committee of 9 Westwood residents committed to bringing people and businesses into our neighborhood. Our goal is to create a litter-free district with a sustainable outcome. I'm here today to request money in the county's projected budget for recycling, containers, and services. Our plan is to place recycling containers next to each garbage can in the business district. The cups we will be using for the Dora are clear recyclable plastic cups that Rumpke just added to their list of recyclable items. Our startup cost will include the purchase of 31 garbage containers with lids and openings to prevent contamination of the containers with other non-recyclable items. The cans will have lid decals to mark these for recycling, wraparound decals specifying what can be recycled, and sidewalk decals to mark where to recycle. We intend to monitor the cans to ensure that items that are recyclable go into the correct cans. The invoices sent to me from Sue Magnus at the city's Office of Environment and Sustainability list the cost of approximately 29 36-gallon sustainable cans or types that do not rust as approximately $40,000. This includes delivery and freight charges. The cost for each can is $1,288. The cost of the decals to mark the cans total around $3,000. The total startup cost should be approximately $43,000. To maintain the city's pickup service with Rumpke, the cost will be about $80 per month or $919 annually. Thank you for your time. We want to do our part to maintain a vibrant and environmentally responsible district.
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you for
welcome.
the effort to recycle in the Westwood Dora District. I'm a big fan of the Dora District, as you may know. Ellen used to teach swim lessons at my swim club, so Ellen and I are very well acquainted.
Yes,
Nice to see
and
you again.
Denise, I taught your children too. I don't know if you
Oh,
remember that.
And they became lifeguards, so to your credit. not
Yes,
mine.
yes.
I appreciate that. Michelle, any response while Ellen is still on the line?
We do have a grant program, so I privately requested Ellen's email address so I can send her.
Oh, perfect.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah,
All right.
when they approached me, I was like, I don't have money for those containers, you know? And it's really timely that the cups were just announced and they wanted to have some recycling for the
Yeah.
spring kickoff. And so I was like, grants, ask for money. We're gonna ask the city budget. We're gonna, we're just gonna, wherever we can ask at this point, that's where
Okay.
they're at. To
Right.
see if anything can get done by May, which is when they wanted to kick off.
Okay. All right, great. Thanks for bringing it to our attention.
Yeah.
We can help.
You're welcome.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, we'll move on. I assume that's, I've got Tim Mara, but I know he's here to speak to a specific issue. Is there anybody else?
No.
Okay. Let's move on to revenue updates and analysis. Michelle?
Yes, so that's in attachment B. I'm not sure, I don't, did we purchase it? So the attachment B, has two sheets in it. It has the full, 2021 compared to 2020, CP receipts. So that is, the last time that we met, we did not have December, so that just shows you the full year. We did see, for the full year, about a 5% increase, in revenue and about a 3.8% increase in tonnage. The in-district, revenue and tonnage was pretty close to almost exact consistent. It's less than a 1% increase. The out-of-district is an increase of 7%, and then the out-of-state is a decrease of almost 3%. That's for the full year comparing 2020 and 2021. And if you look 2022, we only have January so far, so it's kind of difficult to see any trends there. But overall, we saw about a 4.6% increase over January of 2021. I will say, I mean, you all know that 2020 was not a normal year, so it's kind of hard to this data to compare anything or say anything about 2021 since 2020 the economy was shut down for several months. So, but it is what it is.
Any questions, comments? Okay, thank you, Michelle. We'll move on to policy items. The first one, the meeting time adjustment, is related to our newest member. So Matt, do you want to, or Michelle, I don't know who wants to handle this, I'll just give an overview. So basically, Matt's a teacher, and so he's a really hard time getting here at 1:30 in the afternoon. I think that sums it up.
That's right.
Right. So, what time, is good for you?
So we get out at 2:30, and, I can make it here by 3, or 3 o'clock. I don't know if that presents a problem for people, and I know that, you guys causing trouble already, but I spoke to a couple.
To be expected, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. I spoke to a couple of you before I actually, before the, townships voted on the representative, and, said that this would be the best way to approach this, to see if people would be, open to, changing times.
All right, I'm gonna.
So I beg of you your indulgence on that.
No problem for me.
No problem.
Done for me.
Yeah, I can accommodate that.
Okay, well, look, she.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so.
I've never hit a unanimous vote.
Yeah, I know, because don't,
Yeah, are we
some of
okay
you
with
leave at some of you leave at 2:30.
We will have to adjust because, yes, you're right, the clerk does,
Wow.
her date officially does end. But we will have
Very
to,
short meeting.
we'll have to adjust. Yeah, or have a very
Or
short.
very short meetings, which I'm all about that.
Oh, my.
Okay, so internally, are we okay?
We'll make it work.
All right, we're gonna, do we need a vote to do this? I don't think so either. Okay, all right, so we are officially now starting our meetings at 3 o'clock. And then as the notices go out, we'll note the time change. And I will note it, actually, at the end of our agenda, it talks about our next meeting, and it has the 1:30 time, so we'll slot in 3 o'clock and then push that out to the public. All right, very good. See how easy with Matt?
No, I've never hit everybody vote yes on anything.
All right, the next, item is the resource infrastructure grant application.
So if you remember back in September of last year, the policy committee voted to have a new grant program in addition to our regular innovation grant, which is $10,000 or under, have a bigger grant program and opportunity that would be a competitive grant, so it wouldn't be continuously open like the innovative grant. So the infrastructure grant, sorry we used so many I's, but the infrastructure grant was a competitive grant that Sharon Mooring is overseeing. She put it out at the end of last year. Applications were due in late February, so we have 3 applications, and the review committee who reviews these applications is recommending funding all 3, and I will let Sharon Mooring go into a little bit more detail about the 3 grant applications, but they're Colerain Township, Stone King, and Queen City Commons.
You all were provided a little information about each one. So Colerain Township, they basically want to have a, drop-off for food scraps for their residents. So they would be using grant funds to prepare a space, to have that drop-off, signage, promotional materials, so they would talk about it. They will be getting buckets for everyone that's interested in participating, so they want to start off with 400 buckets that people will take home and use that to collect food scraps in their home. And the buckets will be imprinted with information on what can be recycled. They're going to be doing press releases, e-newsletters, social media, website, and YouTube to promote it. And we don't normally like to pay for actual hauling because we're concerned that it would be sustainable, but they did say that they were going to put it in their public services budget on year 3 to do the hauling for it, once they figure out what level of service that they actually need after 2 years of trying it out. Yes.
Sure, can I ask, where is it going to be hauled to? To be composted?
Yes,
Yeah, but
so,
where?
so, Go Zero will be doing the hauling.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So,
And what's the
And that may
location
change.
that the material goes to be composted?
I'm not sure about that. I think it'll depend on what options Go Zero has at any given time.
What's the breakdown in cost between the cost for hauling, cost for the collection buckets?
Okay, so.
I don't
So the 2 years of hauling is $15,600. And then there's a $199 setup fee and, cart delivery of $112. So that's $15,911 for 2 years of service. And then they'll be buying, we're also contributing to the cost of the buckets. They're gonna be purchasing 400 buckets from Go Zero. And then Colerain Township will be, so we'll be paying, the grant would pay for 3,000 of it, Colerain Township would pay for 1,800 of that. And then, the promotion, advertising and promotion, Colerain Township is paying for, gravel pad, media personnel, and, the signage and the actual gravel used to pour the pad for the drop-off is paid by Colerain Township.
And then the township is responsible, once the buckets are delivered, their township property, they're responsible for, they need to be replaced or whatever else.
So the grant is what it is, so
Okay.
you will fund what it is. As far as, you mean the buckets that they give out to residents? Yeah, I don't know that they accounted for if they come up missing. Don't recall that they did.
For the record, that's what we do with the recycling. I assume it's gonna be working the same way on that.
But you own the recycling, the township owns the
Yeah.
recycling containers. I forgot you're from Colerain Township.
That's right.
Yeah. Any other questions about Colerain?
What percentage of the population is that?
Ooh, I don't know.
There's 60,000 residents, so that's gonna be probably, it's probably three people per resident, so, talking about 2.5%, 3% or something. So, part of our new strategic vision, which we started last year, is clean, green, and prosperous. And this is part of that outreach to I mean, we've done a lot with clean, which every community around here has. And we're trying to kind of move towards more green, and we've included things like electric vehicle recharging outlets at the township administration building and things like that. So it fits kind of a strategic objective, the multi-year strategic objective for us. So it's kind of a pilot. I don't anticipate that it'll ever get to the high percentages of recycle because it's just kind of at a different level right now.
Okay.
So there are, 60,000 people in the township, 24,600 housing units. So they based the $500 or 500 carts on data that they got from Go Zero on 2 other communities that have a similar program, as far as how much service they would need and how many people would participate.
And, is Go Zero not-for-profit or for-profit company?
I believe they're for-profit.
Okay, and, so this is a pilot program. And are we gonna get any data back on the results?
Yes.
Okay.
They have 2 years to spend the funding that we provide. And so they'll have a grant report due the first year to let us know where they are, the second year after they've spent all their money, and then year 3 so that we can get a snapshot of what a year diversion is once the grant is fully in operation.
I will throw in too that as part of this kind of new strategic plan, for the first time, we've actually hired a full-time communications director, so that when we talk about social media and outreach like that, we're actually have a dedicated person, not for this program, but for in general, outreach, social media, and PR, that in the past, we've done it kind of department by department, but we're looking to kind of, centralize that and have more focus on getting the message across. So that would be part of this as well.
Could I ask a question, not exactly related to the grant, but related to sort of the impact maybe of the grant? Is there other composting going on in Colerain Township, commercial establishments, schools, I only ask that because we've had grant requests from
communities who are doing more community-wide composting. So I'm just wondering if that was something you've already thought of, or?
I don't know the answer to that, in terms of, like corporate, but if you look at Colerain, basically Colerain just splits us in half. You have the east, which is more urban, and you have the west, which is more rural, and there are a lot of examples of people that do that, individually and by household.
Well, I'm talking about
Right.
commercial still.
Right, I don't know.
Restaurants and stuff, you don't know.
No.
I mean, it isn't something that's a township project at this point to
No.
do that, okay.
Yeah, 'cause you can't have, compost facilities up to 500 square feet without having to go to the Ohio EPA.
I work with schools, I'm not aware of any schools that are currently doing it in Colerain Township.
We need a motion to approve of this grant application.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll abstain since it's Colerain, I think it's
Oh,
perfect.
very good. All right. Thank you.
Okay, the next one is Junk King. So they are asking, for funding to purchase a baler and a forklift to help them better recycle cardboard and, potentially plastic. So a lot of times when a certain product gets discontinued or something like that, they'll also get plastics that were used to make those, that they may have previously used for packaging, a company. So, the baler would basically just help them, do it more efficiently, and their hope is that then they can promote themselves as a, we can pick up your cardboard and help you recycle it better.
What kind of plastics are they recycling, or planning to
It
recycle?
really just all kind of depends on what comes through. I know when I visited the place, they had like Gaylord full of like a type of plastic packaging that someone, got rid of. Their main goal is for cardboard, but they said that when they get certain types of plastics that they, like big quantities of it, it'll help them bale that and recycle that.
My reason for asking is that, are they baling the plastics because it's gonna go to an end market for that?
Oh,
Or
yeah,
are they baling it just,
According to their proposal, it would be for recycling, to help them recycle certain things easier. They work through, Recycling Alliance to recycle those types of materials.
Any other questions?
I would like to know what those end markets are, eventually, to know that it's
Well, I guess we would have to wait.
wasteful recycling.
I guess we would, well, for the cardboard, we know.
We
So
know
I
the
would,
cardboard,
I would
yeah.
assume that it's cardboard. They just said that they would, potentially recycle the
Yeah.
plastics as
And I
well.
imagine when they get the cardboard loads, if they get it with the styrofoam and the shrink wrap in it, because everything that gets shipped in a box has that stuff in it.
right,
So that's probably what they're trying to do, but.
I assume they're located within Hamilton County.
Yes. They're in Evendale, I believe.
Other questions? All right, I'm gonna need a motion to approve of this, grant application.
Motion to approve?
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm abstaining.
All right, and then there's Queen City Commons. They are a local food scrap hauling business, and they have grown quite a bit in the last couple of years. So they are looking to purchase a truck and an 8-yard satellite dump system. And so what they're currently doing is they have a cargo van with a lift gate, and they pick up like what your garbage and recycling carts would look like at home, but they're for food scraps. So they pick up from different restaurants and different organizations, and they have public drop-offs. What they've been doing is picking those up in the cargo van, taking them to the compost site. Sometimes it's community compost site, sometimes, that they work with. It all depends on what material they're collecting as far as where it goes, but it's usually going to a community compost site. So then they drive the van with the carts and to the community drop-off site, and they dump them out there to be compost for the material to be then moved into whatever compost, area there is. Then they have to take the carts, to, a centralized location where they wash them all out, and then re-deliver them to the establishments that collect the compost. So what they wanna do is they wanna get a truck and a satellite dump system, so, much like the garbage truck that you hook up, and they put a cart on and it has the hydraulic thing that dumps it into the truck. So it's a lot like that, only a little bit smaller scale. And then, they'll have a pressure washer with 100 gallons of water on site, so they'll pressure wash out, the containers right there and then leave them, so they don't have to drive back and forth several times. It also is saving them, it's hard on their bodies because some of these carts can weigh up to 300 pounds. And they actually have a limit that they cannot put more than 300 pounds in them, but with this new system, they would be able to collect more in each cart. It'll help them, just basically be more efficient and be able to spend more time on promoting the business and getting more customers and doing more about it. As you can see, the match amount is, much higher than the actual grant amount. So they are basically asking for the max that's allowed in the grant. I'm trying to think.
So they're kind of competing with Go Zero? That's the same model?
Well, they're taking stuff mostly to, community compost sites.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
so
They're not hauling it
So
to
they're not
commercial
hauling it
hauls.
far away, but they're doing the same thing, but finding local places to take it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, what areas in the county are they focusing on? Is it geographically defined when they talk about 400 households? I mean, I hope they're not counting Corey Township in that, you know, I mean, what are they?
Yeah, so they don't like, so I think they're more so on the west side. I have to look, in their applications. But a lot of it's more so like small restaurants
Oh,
and coffee places and, juice places and things like that. But they do have some community drop-off sites, where they work in the small community, to educate residents who are interested. They have like a lock on the containers so they can come in. Only the people who are really educated know how to get into them. I know I recently talked to her and they really handhold a lot to make, because they can't deal with contamination when you have, you know, community drop-off sites you're taking it to, so.
Sharon, I'm curious, do you know how they're spraying them out and where the wastewater is going?
So, yeah, so the container, that it'll be dumped into is completely contained. They actually provided information from the manufacturer of it, that it will be completely contained. They only have up to 100 gallons that would go into it anyway. But it also has like, I don't really know how to describe it, but the way it lives down, like any moisture goes to the very bottom, so they don't have to worry about it sloshing out onto the road or anything either.
So after the spray, they'll dump into the big
Oh, yeah, so the container will be up on the hydraulic lid. They'll have a pressure sprayer that they'll spray it out and the water will go into, the compost, the satellite, whatever it's called, satellite.
Yeah, thank you.
I got a question actually for Commissioner Kesterman. You aren't seeing any issues with the smaller regulated composting operations?
Not that I'm familiar with, and in this case, it's going to community sites, which are all regulated and licensed by our organization.
Okay.
So they have 18 commercial customers and 150 residential customers.
You said community sites that are regulated and licensed?
Yeah.
Compost facilities are licensed facilities by Hamilton County Public Health.
Okay. Okay, but not if they're under 500 square feet, but these ones are over 500 then, right?
No, these are the ones that probably are not regulated. These are the.
That's why I thought, I don't think you're, yeah.
Complaints that I'm aware of.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, that's more what I was concerned about.
Yeah.
So does that raise a concern? I mean,
As long as there aren't odors, I mean,
Yeah.
if it's properly managed, but you're right, if there are odors, they will have to be in their complaints.
Yeah.
Then
It sounds like
he'll
it's
be
already
there.
going there, so we would have already had
Had-
complaints,
okay.
it's just a more of an operation.
they're gonna up the ante though, I mean,
A little
they're
bit,
gonna be
yeah.
getting,
Yeah.
And that wastewater does need to go to a sanitary sewer, not to, storm drains or anything. I have had issues with folks
Yeah.
cleaning carts and not properly disposing of the liquid,
Oh, really?
especially leachate, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine it'll be added to the compost when they dump, the food scraps, when they dump it out the compost.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I mean, but food scraps in general have a
Right.
lot of water in them.
Right, so I doubt that they would add that water to a wet tile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's another thing that they said that they would, potentially still be needing to use the old equipment for if it's raining or something like that, to not add extra water to the whole
Right.
ordeal.
well, but is that a question that should be clarified, that water, it's not
From
going
their
into-
dump system.
Where are they putting the water that they're not putting in the compost pile? I mean, I think that's the question, it's going down the
Storm drains
or what? I guess
We just need to
that's,
make sure they know.
Do you sign a contract with them when you give them the money, or how does that
Mhm.
work? Can we include in that contract, stipulation that they manage the water appropriately in accordance with
right,
ORC?
Yeah.
I think that would be very good, yeah.
We do.
That's a more broad question. I'm starting to go very. But, as we continue to see applications in front of us, is there an annual budget that is set aside for these kinds of grant applications, and how much is it? And then, how does staff evaluate, obviously you're vetting these before you bring them in front of this group. What's the evaluation process for, which ones make the cut, which ones don't, and how much money, is going out of that fund?
Okay, so we had $150 budgeted for grants this year.
150,000?
$150,000, yeah, and so, and that is split up between our resource infrastructure grant and our waste reduction innovation grant. So the waste reduction innovation grant, which you'll also see a little bit later on in this meeting, some of the ones that we're recommending for those are all under $10,000. So this one, the infrastructure grant that we're talking about now is actually something that we are trying this year, because there was some concern in, other meetings that maybe the $10,000 wasn't enough to really help a lot of these, projects that needed more funding. So, last year we proposed that we cut out, a certain amount out of that budget to give this grant a try and see what kind of interest we received in it. We internally planned on, having up to $90,000 that we would fund through this grant. This, grant is more, the infrastructure grant is more competitive because we're judging them against each other, but, we had enough funding for all of them, so it wasn't really, but I don't think that we judged them any easier otherwise. We do have a list of criteria, that let's see here.
So this is a new
So they met
program.
minimum qualification.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So they got to fund them.
And we funded all the applicants.
We did fund all the applicants. So, it says on there the criteria for funding, on the report, you can see we have 3 employees of environmental services, rate them from 0 to 5 on each of those categories, to kind of help keep us organized and decide whether or not we felt it was a fundable project.
Okay. That's correct.
Curious, so this is the only time, once a year are the grants would be given in this category, is that correct?
So this is the first time we've done this, and, we don't intend to do this grant again this year, but I think that, depending on what
Right.
our budget looks like.
It's a once a year thing.
Mhm,
Okay,
yeah.
that's what I was.
And we wanted to fund it really soon in the year so that we knew, like, if we had whatever leftover funds are available for the,
Okay.
innovation grants.
So Sharon, my recollection is not very good on this. Really, the focus on these grants are one thing, they're not meant to be ongoing operating.
Right.
To fund that. Two, the kind of, I think, organizations or companies we were looking for might be a startup, or the ones you have here, which are more them trying to take their, Cool Range is kind of a startup, but the other ones are more trying to move up to a next level or add a capacity and trying to boost that. But these are intended to be sort of one-time grants to them and not ongoing.
Sustainability is really important to us, yeah.
And let me just make one comment. In the past history of the district has done this before, way back when, and frankly, some of them did not work out, but that, I see that as kind of one of the things the district has the luxury to do, is to look at something that might be new or innovative and sort of take a risk on it, so.
Well, and so we limit our risk a little bit because in the contract, if we are paying for equipment, so for both Queen City Commons and Junk King, if they discontinue using that equipment, within the first 3 years, they owe us money back. Like within the first year, they owe us 100% back. Within the second year, 70%. Within the third year, 40%.
Thank you.
Right, any further discussion? All right, I'm gonna entertain a motion to approve of this grant application.
Motion and recommend that the motion, language referencing disposal of.
So, a second.
All right, thank you. Any further conversation? Those in favor say aye. All opposed? Abstentions? Okay, thank you. Thank you for the presentation.
My pleasure.
All right, we're gonna move on to 5C, industry representative, and this is really a broader conversation about, some terms that are expiring in the process to, either allow those that are serving to reapply, or to replace. So, Michelle, I'm gonna let you talk about this one.
So, Tony Fuccio, next to his term, is up in May, will be his last meeting. So, we will need to have, a new industry rep or, re-up coming in. So, the industry representative, according to Ohio Revised Code, is someone who represents business, large industries. In the past, we've had a representative from JTM, St. Bernard. So typically it's someone from the business community or industry. Typically we've put out for application, had interviews, and then that interview committee brings to the policy committee a recommendation. And then 4 statutory members, which are two, that Denise and Tony will vote. The other members, according to ORC, are not allowed to vote. I'm sorry, I said Tony, I meant Greg. So, the 4 statutory members vote, to appoint that policy committee. Coming up with the process we want to use.
So, question, the businesses, that this industry representative comes from, are they, businesses that generate significant amounts of solid waste? I mean, how is it?
Not to define that specifically, it's really just as long as they're in Hamilton County, or in our district.
Okay, gotcha.
We delineate that we hope to have a recommendation for 2 of the 4.
I mean, from 2 of the 4.
Did we talk about, how, if, I'm not that familiar with this process either, so I don't know how much interest there is when, an application goes live, and how, do we get 10 people that say they want to do it? Do we get 1, or just a few? And then how does the process work or does it just come to the fore at a public meeting and we sort it out? Or is there a subcommittee that's in place, to kind of vet through or sort through and narrow it down to say 2 or 3 or, whatever the appropriate number is?
Yeah, I would say we would never usually interview more than 2 or 3 people who apply. With the industry reps, it is, people representing industries are very busy. It is hard to get people to volunteer, but we will get the word out and get a volunteer. So I did send an email to the 4 statutory members asking if for any volunteers to help interview, and Sue and Greg, thankfully, thank you both, volunteered. So if the committee is okay with that, then we would have Sue and Greg come, and we maybe do virtual interviews for applicants, and then they would come to a consensus and recommend someone that the committee would at the May meeting.
I would expect we'd get maybe between 3 and 10 applications.
I have one suggestion. You might want to reach out to Representative JTF.
And I would think anyone who completed the industrial survey, would be interested in something like this.
Lobbying against or something?
Not directly, but you did a great job.
Well, and we do want to make sure that those that are interested have an opportunity to,
Seems appropriate to have somebody that's generating waste
Yes.
fill this position. It's always added another unique perspective, particularly for some of the grants and the last decade.
I really, what was sort of behind my question was, because someone had asked me, in light of the discussion we've had in the past about replacing somebody from Rumpke, in the conversation after Larry Riddle resigned, would Rumpke qualify as a business representative? And that's why I asked. They're not a waste generator, they're a waste collector. And I just, because I think some people were kind of interested, these were folks who probably didn't want Rumpke included, but they wondered if Rumpke would be possibly included as a business to be represented.
Yeah, there's just one position that explicitly says it cannot be a waste representative, but everyone else could be in the waste yeah. They want to make sure that it wasn't all, but.
Boxes, washing.
Yeah.
So Karen, maybe it shed a little bit of light on questions. So how did I wind up being appointed? I do a lot of work for the waste generators in terms of waste composition studies. How can they best recycle? How can they reduce? So those are sort of my direct. Not many in Hamilton County, actually.
all right, so you'll keep us in line here, Michelle, by way of timing and making sure that, we don't have a lot of, time between, process and. Thank you. And we do, I think, is it Karen that's coming up relatively soon as well?
Yes, Karen will be up in July, will be her last meeting.
Right,
So
so we
we'll
want
talk
to
about
make
it
sure we
again.
got a process in place that's open to everybody, and transparent, so that everyone knows you continue to be interested, you know how to do that, and anybody else that would like to.
And just coincidentally, Joe Moss, I still work with him because he is interested in waste reduction, so he's been piloting new technologies. When I get the sales call, I'm like, Joe, maybe try this one, so he does.
All right, very good. So, that's probably, I guess we don't need any kind of vote or anything, this is just the process that's being laid out. Okay. All right, thank you for the update, Michelle. All right, we'll move on to 6 informational items. The first one is the solid waste rules update, and Nifong, I believe you've got an update from the process.
Well, the rules are in litigation, so we can hear comments.
Oh, can I stop you? I'm
Yes,
sorry, I
of
didn't mean to
course.
interrupt you. We have, public comment. I apologize, Tim, sorry about that, Nifong. All right, so Tim Mara is here to speak to this item. So Tim, you've got the pleasure of the floor for 3 minutes, and Nifong, then we'll go to you afterwards.
All right, thank you. My name's Tim Mara, and I'm a member of the Board of Directors of Oxbow, Inc., an environmental organization. We want to thank the board for your work over the last year in discussing, debating, arguing, and reaching a consensus, shall we say, a majority, on a set of rules. The rules are rather basic, and you recommended them to the commissioners, and then the rules were adopted. That's quite an accomplishment, given that for many decades, the county failed to seize the opportunity to have any rules in place regarding solid waste placement of projects. So that's quite an accomplishment. Thank you to everybody. Oxbow is a member of the Solid Waste Caucus, which is composed of representatives of several environmental organizations like the Sierra Club, as well as several citizen organizations. And the caucus has put together a suggested refinement of the rules, which I've furnished to Michelle, and I understand she distributed to all of you. So we hope in the future you will give consideration to these suggested refinements and give some time to it at a future meeting of this policy committee. Our suggestions are, I think, minor. There are very few additions to what you had. What we have done, excuse me, is reorganize the rules a little bit to create a separate section regarding process of applications that are submitted for consideration. For your help in understanding what we did, we printed the rules, the existing rules in black ink on what was distributed. The new clauses or provisions are in blue ink, and in red we gave you explanations of why the changes in each section. So I hope that'll be helpful to you, and you'll take the time to read that for consideration at a future meeting. So while I'm here, I'll just wander a little bit away from the subject of rules to say that we also hope that in the update of the waste management plan, you will include citing strategy of the plan which parallel and are consistent with the rules. So that is our hope for the future regarding to rules and site strategy. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. All right, Funk, sorry about that.
At this time, I believe everyone knows that the rules are in litigation, and so really, we can't have discussion on it. We can take comments, but the policy board members can't go into discussion at all with them. I can say.
Yep, thank you. All right, we will move on. 6B, the solid waste plan update. So Karen Dean is here. Is Karen Dean? Karen Lucan. Karen and I have known each other for a long time. She was Karen Dean, now she's Karen Lucan. Welcome. Please come forward. And Michelle, I don't know if you want to kick this off.
I do have sorry, that's just back. I do have, at the request of Karen Hurley, I do have a quick timeline to show you, just to kind of reintegrate everyone, or reorient you where we are in the plan update process. So this won't take very long, but my screen. So if you remember, we started this process back in May of last year. And you'll see we are in the first, this is not a linear timeline, we're actually in the first two boxes. So we collected the data last year for our baseline year of 2020. Now we are, so we finished that. We are in the analysis phase and the stakeholder input phase, where we've actually nearly finished both of these, and then we're going to be moving into the body of the plan. So I'm going to go over each of these. These were all the analyses, and the ones at the top in blue or black are the ones that staff has worked on. The ones in red are the ones that Karen's worked on. She's going to be talking more about those. But I just kind of want to give you an idea of where we're at. We're actually almost finished with all of these, even the ones that aren't crossed off. There's just a few more pieces that we need to add onto this. So the other piece that we haven't really discussed yet in these meetings is the diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant. But a lot of work has been going on in that. And Rice Education Consulting, or RedCon, will be coming to the May meeting to present on their findings. But they have been, they've evaluated 5 of our current programs. They have been working closely with Karen on stakeholder input. They evaluated our staff training related to DEI. And then the next phase is for them to evaluate 2 or 3 new programs. That doesn't mean they're gonna evaluate all the new programs, just a few that we think would really benefit from their evaluation. And then they will be presenting and giving you in May, a written report with all of their findings and their suggestions. I'm not gonna steal Karen's thunder as a stakeholder input, she's gonna talk a lot about that, but we have been working on that. The next phase will be working on these, 6 chapters and, doing projections and putting in data. A lot of this work is gonna happen in April. But I wanted to give you kind of just a brief look at where we're at in the process. So, my hope is that you will receive a draft, the policy committee will receive a draft of the plan in May, that you'll have until mid-June to evaluate that. We will be, adding your comments, updating that. I'm hoping, through the end of June, then we'll be sending that, to the policy committee again, the final draft in July, and then voting it on, at the July 20th meeting, because we have to submit the draft to Ohio EPA by August 7th. I know that seems really rushed and hurried, a lot of that happened, so I wanted to show you something else, and I know this is very intimidating to just look at it first, but bear with me, I will try to, explain it a little bit. So we are in this 15 months right here, where we are preparing the draft plan. Once we give that plan to Ohio EPA, they have 45 days to review it and give us their 9 non-binding opinions on things that we should change. We have then, sorry, my mouse is not cooperating. We have then pretty much a year to integrate their changes if we want. Usually we don't take that long, but we do have a lot of time after that to, according to their process, to adopt our final plan. And then once we decide that we want to start that ratification process, we have 90 days to get it ratified, which means we have to get communities representing 60% of the population, including the city of Cincinnati and the Board of County Commissioners, to approve that plan. Last time we put out a plan for ratification, we got 100% of the communities. So that is all I had, so I'll hand it over to you.
All right.
Oh, I have to pull up your.
Okay, can I ask you a question? So, Michelle, when the draft plan is presented to the policy committee in, I think you said May, and then we have a month to review, is that draft available to the public stakeholders? Okay, so it's published at that point, and anybody that wants to see it and offer comments can do so. Okay, great, thank you.
Welcome. Good. Thank you. She's pulling up the dog and pony show. You can't have a consultant that doesn't have a PowerPoint.
My computer doesn't let me have very PowerPoint open.
Look at it, like,
Yeah.
the council actually.
Right.
Look at it, yeah.
That's, Karen, while Michelle's doing that, you want
Yeah.
to sort of introduce yourself, background?
Sure. My name is Karen Lukin, and I started my career at SCS Engineers and then came over and ran the solid waste district for about 5 years. I worked with Sue, I worked with Susan, I worked with Allie. Then I went back into private consulting for about 10 years, and then in 2008 had the opportunity to go work for President Clinton's foundation. And I was his global waste director. And in that capacity, I worked in 23 countries and on 5 continents, working on solid waste management issues. I started my own firm in 2016, and I am a female-owned firm in Hamilton County. I do some work in Ohio, some work throughout the U.S., but I also do work with the World Bank. And currently, I am working with the World Bank to estimate the amount of waste that will be generated from the migration of people from Ukraine to Poland, and assess their infrastructure, and when relief dollars are made available, making sure that solid waste management is at the table. Because if the solid waste is not collected, you're going to start having secondary deaths from the war. You're going to have, dysentery and cholera. And, solid waste is never a sexy issue, but it's an important issue. So that's me. That's my company. I'll let Julie introduce herself, and she's getting ready to speak, but she's on my team for this project. So as Michelle said, stakeholder engagement and planning is huge. I mean, solid waste management affects everyone on a daily basis. In fact, it's the only public service that people really interface every single week by having their garbage picked up and their recycling and litter dumping. So we were very committed throughout this process to include stakeholders.
And as Michelle said, the first stakeholder group we met with is with Rico's firm, and we invited minority businesses to participate in a focus group. So it's diversity, equity, and inclusion. They're different. Some were owned by women, some were men, some were owned by gay companies. So again, we wanted to have this embrace it. Interestingly, none of them had ever heard of R3Source before. So this was their first engagement with us, and they were thrilled that you guys even cared about what they thought. We wanted to know the best way to share information with them, and they were all unanimous: no more emails, don't call us directly, but to partner with organizations that they were already involved with. So when we were doing the survey, for the public input survey, we reached out to the African American Chamber of Commerce, the Micro Enterprise Initiative, the Urban League, Motor, to start building a relationship with organizations that they already trusted. It was interesting, we asked them, so are your customers really all that concerned about recycling? And they were quite honest with us that actually not. And we're hearing this throughout all of our engagement. It comes down to economics. So sadly, people are not willing to pay more for recycled content goods, but the business said they were still willing to do it and that they were including it in their business model. They were really looking for our R3Source to help provide that technical assistance, that they're interested in doing it, but at the end of the day, they still need to sell their product, and that is their priority. And also that it needed to be convenient and not interfere with their core business. Especially right now, trying to retain employees and hire employees are putting a lot of businesses in a difficult situation. So you really can't ask employees to take a couple extra steps to separate the recyclables from, the trash unless it's there. And again, it's convenient and it aligns with their core business. The other next step was public outreach. So, we approached this being both online and in person. R3Source did an outstanding job of getting the word out that there was a survey, and we actually had our online meeting yesterday. So to date, we have about 790 online respondents to the survey. I did notice in analyzing the data that the majority of respondents were 50 years old and plus and white. So what we're doing now, we're keeping the survey open later, and again, we are working with Rico's firm to try to broaden the diversity of the people who respond to it, get a little bit of younger audience, more diverse audience, so we are going to keep it open for another month.
How was the survey done? Was it just like a Google form or?
SurveyMonkey. SurveyMonkey, yes. And so we really leveraged, R3Source communicates with the communities in Hamilton County on a regular basis. So we made sure that every single community was made aware of the survey, and we asked them to promote the survey to their residents. We did some general mass media. Anyone who has ever contacted Hamilton County R3Source was able to send information about the survey. So we really tried to get the word out there. And I know I've shared this with several of you. I have never seen 40 attendees at a public meeting on solid waste ever in 30 years, unless you were citing a facility and you offered food. So we had a great turnout yesterday, and I do suggest as your policy committee positions start opening up to make sure that the people who attended are aware of it. I mean, it was an outstanding dialogue, lots of interest about solid waste, and we'll kind of summarize some of those. So what am I hearing back on public issues and key things that they want the R3Source to consider in the plan? Food waste. It's coming up time and time again. I'm thrilled to hear that you guys are providing some grant dollars for that infrastructure, because some people will go to the facility on their own. Most people want the convenience to have it collected, especially the businesses. So you're going in the right direction on that. Definitely consistent messaging. People, this came up yesterday in the call as far as, okay, why can I recycle number one soda pop bottle but not number one clamshell? Because it's different resins. So definitely people are still confused out there of what can and cannot be recycled. And it's fantastic. I know Rumpke's on the call, that we can start having cups, but you can do plastic cups but not the number red cups, which, if you go to any college party, they all have the red cups. So that's going to be a little bit tricky. And I just did a project for Hamilton County at the zoo where during Festival of Lights, I can't even tell you how much coffee cups and hot chocolate cups, but the thing is you recycle the cup but not the lid on the cup. So it's great, but it is going to be some tricky messaging. More and more people are about the plastic waste, not just end-of-life management, but recycling. But how do we prevent so much plastic from entering the system? Plastic film, plastic bags, as we'll talk about, is the third most largest component that's being disposed in the landfills in this region. And if you think about it, plastic film, this is by weight. So that is a lot of plastic film that's getting thrown away. And then finally came up, we had an interesting conversation of, people have mandatory waste collection in the cities, but not all of the townships. And I know there's a consortium of Colerain Green and Springfield, that they have a contract, residents must, sign up for garbage collection. Where I live in Mount Washington, and I mentioned yesterday on the call, people from Anderson Township, I see BMWs dropping off trash at the dumpster at the apartment complexes and then heading downtown. So obviously, that is still somewhat of an issue, and I think it does contribute to some of the open dumping problems. So I'm not going to go through every question we asked. We asked 10 different questions on the survey, but also I found this very interesting, especially after yesterday's call, that being able to choose a waste hauler is not a priority for most people. Most people want to make sure their haulers have curbside recycling, convenience costs. But, I hear time and time again when we talk about mandatory collection of, well, I will be able to, that's taking away my freedom. I can't choose my hauler. Based on this data, that's really not that important to people. But I also want to be transparent. The majority of the people who responded to the survey said, yes, I participate in curbside recycling. So obviously we had an audience that sort of had a vested interest, and I think if we had a broader group of people in the townships maybe, that answer may be a little bit different, but I just want to be honest about who is responding. We also said, okay, right now, things like yard waste drop-off, HHW, or HH products, HHP, is free to residents. So we asked, okay, if you had a nominal fee, $10 per car or less, would you still participate? And you could see the majority of the people, I had a little thing on it. The majority of people said, yes, I would still participate or probably participate. And then we had about half of the people saying probably not, definitely not. So I was interested in looking at, okay, who could we lose? So I looked at the people who responded, we asked the question, did you participate in the HHP program in the last 2 years? And I looked at the people who said yes. And you see here that if you started charging a fee, 25% of the people said probably not, even though they were participating and they were a curbside recycler. So these are our green people. And then, we have about 5% of people say definitely not, I would not participate. So I was a little bit surprised that this particular audience that's committed to the environment still wouldn't pay. And then we look at yard waste, and it goes up to almost 40% of the people who used the yard waste program in the last year said they probably would not pay for yard waste if they had use the program if they had a fee, and then we have, definitely would not use it. So I was somewhat surprised at these results. And again, our conversation yesterday, and I Sue, you were on the call, and several of you were, we had an economics professor from NKU and saying that basically, there is that very few people are going to want to pay to do the right thing, which is obviously discouraging. I mean, I've been at this for 30 years. We have 30-year-olds who have been saying in the schools how important it is to recycle, but they still don't want to do it, which is, at some point, the district may have to choose what is the most important program to offer, because it doesn't look like people will pay. We also,
Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt you. So that perception, do you think not on household hazardous waste products, but on things like yard waste and recycling, do you think the public perceives that, well, there should be no cost to do that because you're pulling all these valuable materials out and then you're getting money by selling them?
I think there is that, and I also think especially taking the time to go to a drop-off or a special event, they feel like I'm doing the right thing, so why would I have to pay? Because I'm doing something positive for the environment.
Okay, thank you.
But all that comes back to, and this is a conversation we had 25 years ago, that, things like the yard waste, you need to make sure that the yard waste that you're composting, and especially these new small food waste composting facilities, that you are producing a product that has value. At some point, like I said, they have to be self-sustaining businesses to reduce the subsidies that they're getting from the county. And, I hope
we've learned. I mean, when the composting facilities started in Cincinnati 25, 30 years ago, it did not survive because they weren't creating a product that people purchased. They're like, oh, I get the compost for free. So I'm hoping we've learned from that these new facilities create a valuable product. We're gonna have to generate revenue. We also had a focus group. We invited all of the communities to in-person meetings, focus group, online meetings about what their issues are. And ironically, one of the biggest things that kept coming up were dead trees. That I guess there was a lot of trees being planted 30 to 40 years ago that have reached maturity, and I think the cicadas contributed a little bit to it, but that just kept coming up. I was really surprised. So, I mean, one of the things that R3Source may need to think about is some kind of mobile grinder, because they are a health hazard, and maintaining these trees, I mean, I think it costs several $1,000s to bring down. So that was a big issue, a surprising one to me. Open dumping, big issue, and in fact, I got invited by Mayor Aftab to serve on a committee about open dumping in Cincinnati. So I think, which is good, but it's going to put more demands, I believe, on Brian, your environmental enforcement officer, because the awareness is being raised. HHW, HHP, people in the communities would like to see more of those events. Challenge is they're very expensive, and we just learned that people won't pay to use them, so that's going to be a bit tricky. Contamination and overflow, again, and this is a big problem in Anderson Township, that they, at their recycling drop-offs, they get a lot of trash. And that kind of comes back to people in Anderson Township have the option of whether or not to subscribe for garbage collection. And sadly, again, people that have the means, the financial means to pay for $15 a month are choosing to dump it on Anderson Township, which costs township money. So it's kind of...
And the people from Green Township are dumping it in Cincinnati.
Correct. It really, it is a huge problem. And then food waste. Like I said, I hear from the residents, from the communities, from the businesses. Everybody wants to do something with their food, to see more food being rescued, to prevent the generation of food waste. I mean, the statistic is the average household throws away about $1,500 worth of food waste a year. And I know myself, you know, I'll be like, oh, I should get all this produce to be healthy. I think the campaign should be, just be honest about Pringle. Let's stop kidding ourselves. So, again, it's somewhat of an issue. Tony and I met with the food trucks. The food trucks are really interested in doing something. They know they're not very green right now, but, you know, they need to have some kind of co-op to buy the non-styrofoam takeaway containers and the non-plastic forks. You know, we have some commissaries where the food is made. If some recycling can be done there. So they really want to do the right thing, but they're tiny and they don't have much space. And so, again, we're going to think outside the box on that one.
Hey, Karen.
Yeah.
Give credit where it's due. It wasn't me that met with you. You said Tony.
Oh, not that Tony.
Yeah.
Tony Staubach.
Yeah.
No, he won't go to a food truck. Sorry. Tony and I, it's just so strange because I've worked with all of you in some capacity for many years. So we also looked at the business program and some of the strengths of the business program, and I know you got the paper that I wrote on it, but you know, there's a wide variety of programs, over 100 engagements a year from R3Source with the business community. This is obviously pre-COVID. Right now, your business program, I know Ohio EPA no longer has a manufacturing goal, but you know, 81% of what's generated from the manufacturing industries is recycled, reduced, or reused. Now, to put that in context, 50% of that comes from just one particular business. So, you know, not every business is doing 81%, but your commercial is vibrant, 40%. Some of the challenges, you know, there's one or two business specialists, and there's 21,000 businesses. It's really hard to get data from them. You know, measuring results. I mean, it literally, you know, once Mary works with one business, she's running it on to the next business. So we're really not able to see, okay, after we provided this guidance, did you do something? Did you set up a recycling program? What challenges? And I feel like it's important to circle back and learn. I know when Procter & Gamble, when I was here, they used the word learnings. And that's how they run their business. You know, what worked, what didn't work. You want to promote your success, but not repeat your failure. So some of the recommended strategies I have, and I know I'm driving everybody at R3Source crazy, but I'm very big on targeting and focusing. So So if you have 21,000 businesses and one person, maybe one year, the focus is one particular business type. I did work with Mary on a waste sort at Rheingeist. We have 200 breweries right now in Hamilton County. So maybe the focus one year is, okay, here's what's in the Rheingeist waste stream, here's what's recyclable, here's what's not, here's what we can do for you. Maybe have a seminar for that particular industry type, have them start networking, and then go on to a different industry type. Because like I said, with 21,000, you got to focus and you got to be, just leverage what you've learned. Again, tracking the data, which Julie's going to be giving some suggestions about, and I think you need some paid advertising. As I said, we had 800 people respond to the public input survey. We had 13 so far respond to the business survey. I mean, we reached out to 55 Chamber of Commerce's, business organizations. Like I'm the chair of Mount Washington Kirk. I don't know what it's going to take, but if we don't have data from them, it's very hard to figure out how you can help. And I think some paid advertising would work. The other two is that with the multifamily. So I was able to get some outstanding data from Hamilton County Planning, and I know that's not their official name anymore. But as you can see here, Sharonville, Forest Park, Mount Healthy, Lockland, and Reading, they have some of the highest multifamily properties in Hamilton County, but some of the lowest diversion rates. And, Forest Park is, I don't know if Wright's on the phone, but I've never met anyone more committed to recycling than Wright Gwynn. And I'm sure it kills him, his numbers are not that great right now. But again, we need to focus on getting the message to multifamily, maybe doing franchise collection where, one hauler in an area would do all of the recycling, and that would be awarded through a franchise versus a contract. I know Cincinnati's going down the pathway of franchising. So that's something that we do need to look at how much legal authority that counties or townships or cities have to franchise waste collection. And the primary difference between a franchise and a contract, typically a contract you give to one business, and you're a contractor. Under a franchise, you can set it up, and this is where Cincinnati's going with it. You can have multiple haulers, but to haul in that area, you have to be willing to provide recycling as well as trash collection. So I think that could help the dynamics of that a little bit. So here are some of the questions that were in the paper, and when I was the manager here, Guy Guckenberger, I don't know if any of you remember Guy, but he always said, I was going to expect that you read it, so I'm not going to go through the paper. But some of the questions is, how much time should R3Source be spending on the business community? Should they even consider things like, franchising, or in some communities they have it that you have to have a certain amount of square foot allocated for a new multifamily development, so there is enough square footage for your trash dumpster versus your recycling container, your trash container and your recycling container. And again, historically, we haven't gotten a lot of feedback from the businesses. Are there things the county could be doing? And so with that, I'm going to stop for a second, open it up to you of, how much should we invest in the business community, basically?
Right.
So Sue, and I know you're doing some things in Cincinnati, so
Yeah.
maybe you could start off.
So yeah, we are doing, we're franchising, and we're just kind of getting it off the ground right now, and trying to ensure that anyone who does haul waste has a recycling offering. So that is one of our goals. But what we do find, like in our downtown area, one of the number one reason people don't recycle is there's no place for a recycling dumpster. So I think if, and that's a policy that we could make in zoning to require that any new builds or significant remodels have that space, because that's the number one barrier to people who even want to, and so anyway, that I would love to see.
Yeah, I mean, you look at like in Oakley, like all the new apartment complexes that are being built.
Yeah.
It's hard to do it after the fact.
Right.
Yeah.
So, let me respond to that. Be careful what you wish for, because one of the main issues we've had, I don't know if this came up, are collection bins. And, these are private individual collection bins that are, whatever, veterans for VFW, and people just dump everything.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah.
dumpster, you're talking about dumpster?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, and
With
that's,
recycle, I think you
the
may have
dumping.
the same issue.
We
And in
do.
fact, this is such a huge problem that we messed around with it for a year, and we finally figured out the way to attach it is to make it a zoning issue and make them have a zoning certificate. so that if there is a mess, I have someone to call. It's such a bad issue that we had one that they took the collection bin out, and some of these, if you look them up, by the way, there's no trail. They don't exist as companies or anything, and you talk to, like, maybe Walmart or whomever and say, hey, when did you put this in? And they're like, I don't know, somebody dropped it off. It's almost like snipe signs, except snipe bins. But it's such a bad problem that we actually had a community business take it out of the parking lot of a strip mall. And 3 days later, somebody dumped an old couch where the bin was sitting previously.
Yeah.
And that's, I think that might be kind of an issue with recycle bins too.
And it is, I mean, I did work in Olathe, Kansas, and they had the recycling containers at the Walmart, and they, you know, I found a whole playground, you know, dismantled playground equipment in there. I do find, though, that if you limit it more to, say, like at a multifamily property, and you do an intensive education outreach for the tenants, and they take ownership of it, the other thing I've kind of learned is once you start accepting plastics in the drop-off recycling programs, I call it the gateway contaminant, because, again, you know, I know the difference between plastic number one clamshells and bottles, other people don't, and then you put others. So I did a project in Lincoln, Nebraska, and they limited it to just cardboard. That's all they took, and the contamination went way, way down. And obviously, it's not as great as taking all the materials, but if you have a clean cardboard stream, you're gonna have a better chance of having a service provider. And even doing the slots, yeah.
But you're right, we have had to close a number of our drop-offs because of the dumping issue. And so I think one of the next phases is some cameras. And identifying, because there is technology now with artificial intelligence, with 2 cameras, you can find who did it, and you can get their license plate number. And
But
then.
can you do anything then?
Mm-hmm.
And so that is,
We'll get to that.
you know, kind of, that's why we have Officer Peak. And then the other technology that's evolving right now is that, cameras that can actually, when there's a contaminant in there, the artificial intelligence can tell you that it's there, and so that you can educate the person who did it, like if it was, you know, wishful recycling. And so anyway, that, I really would like to see more investment in some of this camera technology, to be able to save some of the infrastructure, and also to catch some dumpers.
Right.
Right now, it's the Wild West. You know, we really aren't, right now, he's investigating a whole lot, but we're not, I haven't seen now we're preventing it because they know we're here. You know, I haven't seen that shift yet.
Right.
You know, and, so I'm hopeful, though, that, you know, with this technology, we could finally see that shift to say, that's working, you know?
Right, and then again, you know, having more of the township actually have collection.
Yeah, and the deer cams are doing it.
Family defined.
Well, it depends which jurisdiction. So, I mean, like in Cincinnati, it's 5 units and above. It's different. I mean, some people define multifamily as 2. When I was doing the research, I was thinking more like complexes.
So that was my sort of leading to my second question, your mantra of focus. So it seems like it would make more sense to focus on the larger complexes first. That's where you're gonna be able to get the most recyclables out of it.
So these statistics right there tell you those are 5 units and above.
And Sue, you said that Cincinnati is are they franchising or are they just requiring recycling if you're going to provide waste collection?
If you haul commercial waste in the city of Cincinnati, you have to have a franchise, and you have to offer recycling.
So you're saying that if you haul within the city of Cincinnati, Waste Management comes in and services a Walmart, whatever.
Yes.
That, first of all, they gotta pay the franchise fee,
Mhm.
and if they're gonna provide trash collection, they're gonna provide recycling with that.
Right.
What if they just come in and provide the recycling?
So if they just do the recycling only, and actually we're trying to figure that out, technically they have to register, but then the fee does not apply. They only have to pay the 20% fee on material landfills, and there is no fee, for material that gets recycled, because that's the economic incentive to try to get people to recycle by making.
And I'm sorry, Deputy Pete, did you have?
Yeah, I was just gonna say something regarding like over in Anderson, as we discussed something with recycling. They have an unbelievable problem over there, Sue, where they're looking in, the township is looking into getting cameras.
Right.
Reason being is because the ones that were in Claremont County, which is closely adjacent, obviously, the next county over, they got rid of theirs because they were collecting all the garbage and was being dumped on the ground, not just recyclables. Well, my opinion is when I catch these folks and I talk to them, like in Anderson, I think there's like 18 or 19 containers there. I would like to say that most of us know that those recycling bins that are green are recyclables. Well, I've spoken to a lieutenant over there or Rumpke about making sure that it's clearly marked, because some of them are not. So that's what their excuse is that, well, this one has a recycling container and the placard and everything on it, but this one doesn't, so that's why I left it there. Okay? You hear them all, I'm not saying you don't, but I just. Well, no, and I'm not, you're exactly right, Sue, but I mean, it's a perfect storm almost. And it's right literally on the property of where our sheriff's department is, our outpost is in Anderson. And it's just, like I said, they don't care, but I just don't think that the focus is there, maybe the
Well,
education
and I
is there
think too, they assume that everyone knows that green means recycling. You cannot assume, like when I did this composition study at the zoo, they had no signage at all on any of their containers. And the number one item in the recycling containers that I did the sort through were the coffee cups that aren't recyclable. So you cannot overkill with information. So, okay.
So, but to your original question though, about where our focus should be, didn't we learn a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago that on the commercial side, that's where the action is? I mean, we're talking a lot about residential, which I think is really important, but a lot of the volume is coming from commercial.
Exactly. And I think, residential's pretty much plateaued, so, and I do think there's a lot of opportunity in commercial. But again, it can't just be a broad net. I mean, it has to be, okay, which SIC codes, which is called standards, and I think she's going to talk, I don't want to steal your thunder. There are certain SIC codes that, and that's how you establish what type of business what you have. Like SIC code 27 is printing industry. So certain SIC codes, you're going to have a great opportunity. I mean, you talked about the new grant for the businesses that are collecting the organics. SIC code 25, which is really sad, I remember these things, is for food. And so that's where, if you're going to do the grant for food collection, then that year may be to target the food industries and get that going and then move on to somebody else. So.
Yeah, and I do agree with you, the targeting is important so that they can begin to network and so that you can customize the information that's applicable to them, that they can use right away and not stuff they have to sift through.
Right. And then again, if you layer that in with some paid advertising, that could also kind of have a multifaceted approach. I'm going to turn it over to Julie, and I'll let you introduce yourself. And Julie's forever.
I'm Julie Pahutsky, and I am not a garbage person. I am a marketing research and analytics person. So Karen asked me to step in and help with a data collection problem that, or opportunity that the county is having. And so just to kind of set the stage here a little bit, resources required to gather information to understand landfill diversion. They're required to ask this of residential, commercial, and industrial organizations. So residential obviously is local communities, industrial and commercial are the businesses and the companies, or in the county rather. So right now there is data being collected for residential through a program called ReTrack, which is specifically geared to collect that data. The information for industrial and commercial is gathered via a fillable PDF form, which is emailed out to the businesses in the county that have we have email addresses for, okay? And then if there's a question, there may be a follow-up question or phone call afterwards to follow up. It's very labor intensive. There's a lot of aggregation on the back end that takes time and is potentially subject to human error, because when you start creating spreadsheets, there's an opportunity to have data wrong, formulas wrong, that kind of thing. So current successes, residential is going great. We have better than 90% completion rate. ReTrack is it's very clear on what's required, and the communities participate well. However, the process to gather and aggregate the data for the industrial and the commercial has challenges. So very low response rate. The list that we currently have, 200-ish for commercial businesses, 200 each ish for industrial manufacturing. So less than 30% response rate on both of those. And that 200 list, the survey doesn't even get to all of them because either we're missing the right contact or we're missing an email address or that kind of thing. So opportunities there to improve. So the first recommendation that I would suggest is to collect all data electronically. Fillable PDF is a great step, but there are better ways to do things now, and decreases the chance for human error, decrease the labor. So in the short term, my suggestion is continue using ReTrack for residential because it ain't broke, so let's don't try and fix it. For business data collection, in the short term, and Michelle, I know there may be some timing issues with this, utilize a data market research-based program like SurveyMonkey, like Alchemer, or Qualtrics to collect that data. It's all aggregated on the back end. There's no transferring data. There's no adding things up. It's all provided for you. But long term, there's an opportunity to move to a platform that is specifically oriented toward recycling information. So it is an opportunity to customize the data collection to the actual companies that are going to benefit from it, and maybe even speak to how recycling can decrease cost, so a very clear benefit for the businesses. If we work with a company like Via Analytics or like ReTrack, which is building out this capability, they can set up a profile. They can reference last year's information. The county can trend this on a dashboard format, and they can then get that information much quicker, spending more time analyzing and making recommendations from that data and less time actually collecting it. So the example I call out here is Via Analytics. So this is a program geared to providing companies claims of sustainability. Their primary client is Bass Pro Shops. They go to Bass Pro Shops, and every store has to provide what recycling they're providing. They are eager to enter the public sector and would work with Hamilton County to design the data input form, the questions. The idea is to make it as easy as possible for the businesses filling this out, so nobody's estimating something they don't have. That would be the methodology. We can also improve the list, and so suggesting that we focus on the SIC codes, SIC codes most likely to have recycling. And so, and this is a theme obviously you heard from Karen, but we know which types of businesses are most likely to recycle, and we can purchase a list that has those companies with emails, with titles, and that will provide a list that will be bigger, at least to start with, than what is currently being used. So an example of that is a company called Exact Data. They verify businesses, they provide the titles, they provide email addresses, and it's a fairly reasonable price. We run it once a year for accuracy. So we talked about methodology, we talked about the list. The request also, there may be an opportunity to improve things there too. So sending out a preparatory email that kind of primes the pump, saying this request is coming, asking for updated contact information, perhaps an opportunity to align the survey to the particular business model. For example, there are breweries on both the industrial and the commercial list. Maybe we can be more focused on that. And that emailed request from the data should include information on data gathering, the value to the respondent. One thing we've seen in market research is that there is a benefit to treating requests for information as a team approach. And we are past the days when Nielsen Company could send paper diaries to people's houses and expect them to fill them in for a $3 payment. But there is an opportunity to share more of the benefits to these businesses and provide an incentive, perhaps, some kind of drawing for a prize or some kind of information that they otherwise would not have had. How do they compare to their competitors, or maybe a donation to a charity? Keeping that language informal and friendly so that people don't get their hackles up about government, as some people are wont to do. So those are just some general suggestions. Any questions about this section?
Out of the companies that did respond, the initial 30%, what were their makeup? Were they largely the higher composters or the lower composters or recycling or anything like that?
Yeah, I do not have that information, but I know that because the list has been used year over year, it's frequently the same companies that have responded in the past. So that history there and a wider net might help get a few more into the fold.
So Julie, if I understood what you were saying about via analytics, is that they could sort of specialize the form to, so it'd be a number of different focus forms, like one being, say, for the microbrewers. So the district would fund that, then who owns the rights to that form? Via analytics retain that right?
I think that's all subject to negotiation. So they created a mock-up for us, but at this point, they are so excited to work with R3Source, but it's got to meet your needs, and it's got to be the right thing for Hamilton County.
When you say affordable, what is the price range?
For that list, $852.
Okay. So, it's very intriguing, what you're saying, but I'm wondering are there other, parts of the county that would benefit from this kind of information about businesses, not just, the Solid Waste Policy District, that would be interested in sharing costs as well as sharing the kind of information that's collected, or does that get more complicated and therefore reduce the value to us?
Well, I was really searching for less labor-intensive approaches, and less phone calls being made, less follow-up, less bad email addresses, and
Right.
so didn't really go down that pathway, but
If you don't mind, so one of the conversations we did, so Julie vetted all these companies, she's not just one.
Right.
But one of the things that triggered out the analytics, along the lines of your question, is that they could interface with the county's GIS system and allow you to do some spatial analysis. So again, I'm gonna stick with SIC Code 25, and, you could see areas of the county where there are clusters of these types of businesses, which again allows you to focus from a geographic perspective. But as good as the data was from the Hamilton County Planning Department, it was still just Excel spreadsheets with zip codes. So I would have to think that there would be value in the county knowing, and especially if you start looking at expanding food waste recovery, where are they at? And, you would have the number of employees and the amount of waste. And I do think some of these platforms could be very valuable. I also felt like, one of the things that came across from Julie's research and our conversations with Michelle is evolving from big brother regulator asking for this data of how can this data help you? I mean, it's like one of the things they mocked up for us, I'm gonna stand up just because I can't see,
one of the things, because I'm short, so one of the things they mocked up for us is that, you know, the survey respondent would say, okay, my dumpster is this size, and you could pick a size, and you make it very icon-based, and it's being pulled, it's halfway full, and it's being pulled twice a week, halfway full. Well, right there, that gives the county something to give back to them of, hey, if you reduced your collection to once a week and got an 8 cubic yard versus a 6 cubic yard, look how much money you could save. Greenhouse gas is a big driver right now. So how much are you emitting in GHGs of having that truck come twice a week? So again, it became more of a customer service versus, we've got to report this to the state and nobody likes to do it. You know, I think that could help. And help, again, brand your business program, so.
Hey, Karen and Julie, one of the things I see is, and what you said here makes a lot of sense, is that I just look at my email inbox, and I lose track of how many emails I get every day that says, we would like for you to do a survey. And it's just, it's.
Delete
on everything.
You just, you know, you don't even, you know, as soon as you see the top line, you just start deleting it. So unfortunately, I don't have a solution for that.
But again, if they were to, you know, I'll stick with breweries because it's getting close to happy hour and I'm Catholic. It's blood. But no, let's say you did the Rhine Guys, like we did this summer, and you really wanted to, you know, saturate the market as far as how far can we get other breweries to recycle. Well, instead of just them getting a survey of how much did you throw away, you start off with, hey, look what we did at Rhine Guys, and look how we saved them money, and look how we helped them achieve their sustainability goals. Let us help you, and if you give some data, we can start having a conversation on it. So, you're gonna
a couple of thoughts I had. Did Junk King do the industrial survey? Okay, I was gonna say, like, probably anyone we give grant money to, if they haven't done it, they don't qualify. Moving forward, you know, and then also, like, the idea with the breweries, you know, if you do a concentrated effort on breweries, and then you rate, you know, then you have your top 3 winners, and then let's say those winners get something of significant value.
Right.
That would maybe be some co-advertising dollars about the, you know. So I think you have to link it to real money, and you know, getting paid advertising about how green those top 3 are might get, you know, all the breweries into this.
Mm-hmm. And again,
or
targeting
whatever
businesses that sort of have a natural inclination towards wanting to do that. I stick with breweries just because most of the people that run them they're young and they're enthusiastic and they, you know, all have big beards. Yeah.
They're all hippies and they go green.
They do. Which is the funny thing was, Rhine Guys, the number one thing they threw away were, they give up, they're kind of like Google, they have a breakfast bar and they have free snacks. And I'm not kidding, all the guys are big and burly with big beards, but they were giving away little Cheez-It bags. It's just ridiculous how I'm like, why don't you get bigger bags? Because that little bag is not gonna, I mean, this is just minor recommendation, but it's like, you know, reduce their waste stream. Buy in bulk. You got bulky guys.
Yeah.
Bulky stuff. Yeah. All right. Any other questions for Julie? Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. All right, moving on to composition. I'm going to just touch on this very briefly. So as I've said several times, food, cardboard, and plastic film are your biggest 3 components, and this is from your Hamilton County sort. There was a sort for the city of Cincinnati specific, and then I also look at SWACO, which is Franklin County. So these in this region, those are the big ticket items. So I also looked at the survey data as far as, okay, you know, recyclers, what about food waste? Let's take you there. And as you can see, a lot of them already backyard compost their food, but we also were very interested in, would you bring your food to a community drop-off site if it were free? And you can see, you know, about 15% of the people said yes, they were willing to do that. I was surprised that high percent, almost 25%, were not interested in doing anything with food waste. And again, these are your recyclers, so I was a little discouraged in that. And then I cross-tabulated this data of, okay, if you paid a small fee, you know, $10 a car to bring your food waste, and I was shocked at this, that, you know, that high a percent said they probably would not come. So these are people that said they would come if it was free, but $10 they would not. So again, you know, the more valuable you can make that compost, the greater opportunity you have to get people to show up. So again, you know, preliminary strategies, we're looking at the various SIC codes. There's Syntheca Energy, which is opening up in St. Bernard. They are an anaerobic digester that's going to be taking food, converting it to energy. They want over 100,000 tons of food a year. Now, they're not very interested in post-consumer because they're afraid of contamination. But again, seeing what industries and, you know, getting the food from grocery stores and all of that, the pre-consumer waste, again, creating value for anything recycle, compost. Grief Paperboard, I have a call into them to see if we could get more cardboard drop-off sites at apartment complexes, either through Rumpke contracts or maybe they even do some direct. And then Michelle and I met with a firm called Breitbart. They are up in northeastern Indiana. They are a firm that can take plastics, all grades of plastics, and convert them to a fuel product. They're not really interested in PET. They don't want to compete with the recycling industry, so they're not targeting PET. They're not targeting HDPE. When I was at the Clinton Foundation, I vetted a lot of these technologies, and where they all fell apart from research and development to commercial scale is they were producing a fuel product, an oil-type product, but they didn't have refining capacity. So basically, it was liquid fuel, but you couldn't put it in an engine or a motor. They are teamed with BP. BP is their refinery. They are partnered with IDEM. That's where they got their bonding through. And they literally could take all plastics from Indiana and Ohio. I mean,
Here's the problem, they no longer take number ones, which are the biggest, the hub here in Cincinnati, had to stop sending number ones to them. They
Right.
can't take it.
Right.
And that's
And again,
the biggest collection of.
Except the plastic film. I mean, and this is the one that's the third largest component in the waste stream. You know, I would love to see a grant application, maybe the next year, the infrastructure of, you know, getting the trucks to get this collected, working with Kroger, you know, and seeing, you know, because the state has told us we can't ban plastic bags.
Right.
So we got to figure out something. So we were very excited in our conversation with them. We are very fortunate to have them here. And it came because the state of Indiana is willing to bankroll them.
So what do you mean by plastic film? Would that be plastic bags? Would it be wrap, shrink wrap?
Yep,
Pretty general, okay.
yep.
Although Cleveland is saying, we can still ban it, we just can't charge the fee, and they are moving ahead.
They are?
They are moving ahead.
Okay, so until the state,
They're gonna test it, yeah.
until the state legislature knocks
Well,
that out.
because it was, you just can't charge the fee, so they decided, okay, we won't charge the
Try it
fee.
anyway.
The fee was to help the businesses deal with it, you know?
Right.
But state won't let us give you your money, business, blame the state.
Yeah. Yeah, and our state, I did work in Arizona, and we call it the ban on bans, you know? Seems to be a popular buzzword. Finally, enforcement, right, last but not least, so I kind of did a real 360 on the enforcement program, met with Brian's office, met with the phone, although telephone, met with the Hamilton County Health Department, Keep Cincinnati Beautiful, also did some benchmarking in Swaco, Montgomery County, Clark County, and then Odessa, Texas, because they have a very, very proactive education campaign. And that issue paper should be up to you in the next couple weeks for you to review. But in general, I also looked at some of the numbers, because, you know, Brian is wonderful about gathering all this data and reporting it. I'm like, well, what's happening here? So one of the things you notice, the program started in 2018, and I looked at the data through 2021. The response percentage, so that is the percent of people who call in for a complaint and the number of responses that Brian now is doing. This in no way is a reflection of lack of interest or commitment to this program. What this decline shows is the program is becoming more efficient. When the program first started, almost every complaint that was made got investigated. And, you know, that was not the most efficient use of time. So everyone's gotten much better about screening, asking about is there evidence, is there data, to focus the efforts on, you know, what complaints can we actually cite somebody for.
Right.
So this is a very positive trend. Another positive trend is the ratio of misdemeanor arrests to convictions. As you can see, in 2018, it wasn't very high, and again, because the program is chasing its tail a bit as far as, what do we really want to do? What are we going to go after? There was a huge peak in 2019, almost 100% of any misdemeanor arrests and of the convictions. It's kind of plateaued around 75 to 80%, which again is an outstanding ratio as far as the percent of arrests and then what actually gets convicted. The other thing I looked at is, okay, where are the hot spots? Again, focus, focus, focus. So you can see Cincinnati, sorry, Sue, wins five as far as the number of complaints by jurisdiction. But what you can also see too, Colerain Township and Greene Township and Springfield Township, since you guys are now having a more mature collection program with everyone having to subscribe for collection, your numbers are way down. So again, that is an indicator that if people have to pay for garbage collection, the number of complaints and open dumping goes down.
And actually, last year, we got a dedicated officer to environmental crime.
You did, that's right. That helps immensely as well. Now, the one thing we would love your officer to do, so at the call yesterday, about 15% of Colerain Township were not paying their Rumpke bill. So Rumpke had to stop providing service because they weren't getting paid. So somehow they need to, and I asked Rumpke yesterday, I'm like, could you bring Colerain Township the list of customers that stopped paying so they can get some kind of official, hey, you're breaking the law. So hopefully that connection can happen. So again, and with Cincinnati, part of it's people who live here, but again, I think there is just a lot of drive-through dumping. And the thing is, I'm afraid this number is going to go up with all the increased awareness. And, there's only Brian. So I'll talk to Mayor Aftab, my best bet, see if we can get some more officers. But no, seriously, and this is my conversation with you, with All-Star, with Keep Cincinnati Beautiful. There are some police districts, departments that are very committed to pursuing open dumping. There are others that don't see that as a significant crime. And I did work in Cuyahoga several years ago, and what we found out, especially the tire dumping, what was happening, people were going around to these tire shops saying, I'll only charge you 50 cents to take away your tires, 50 cents a tire, pocketing the money, using it for drugs and drug trading, and dumping the tires. So open dumping, again, is sort of a gateway crime. There's a lot of things going on sometimes behind the scenes that warrants more investigation. And Oswego and Montgomery counties do have more support from Columbus and Dayton from their Public Works Department to actually remediate sites. Clark County, he says, his expression was, unless there is a red velvet sofa, we're not going to try to take it and prosecute it. They will do misdemeanor citations, but to try to take something, and this, try to get it through the grand jury and get it to trial as a felony, you better have some ironclad evidence, and there's not usually that. The cameras can help a lot. Montgomery County has 80 cameras. But again, you have to make sure that there is no question what that license plate is. So again, they actually use sheriff's patrols and prisoners, they call it their PRIDE program, that their focus, again, unless it's ironclad or they can issue a citation, they go out and clean it up. And they really take a lot of pride in their PRIDE program. Yeah. So that is going to be one of my suggestions for the county to consider is maybe, unless Brian has an ironclad case that he can take to Mifong to just clean it up.
Yeah, what's really cool about these new cameras is that with the artificial intelligence, it'll download the license plate, and then it'll time it, date it, give the GPS coordinates, and then you can program it to look for that car. So then it will notify you in live time when it sees that car in that location. So, right. We gotta get this stuff.
Well, it is. It's just a huge problem. And I've always felt like when people grow up with trash and litter around them, it just becomes a way of life. It's their frame of reference. So, if kids walk by a pile of trash every day on their way to the bus stop, they just think that's okay. That's what life is.
They don't see it anymore.
Right. Yeah. So, all right. Thank you, everyone. Any other questions or? All right. And thank you to Michelle's team for all the data and research with me. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very interesting. All right. We will move on to 6C, the Waste Reduction Innovation Grant update.
That is Captain E, and these are just the regular, we have two applications for special innovation grants. These are both under 15,000, these are not ones that you need to approve, but they are, Church on Fire Ministries, and this is a food pantry, basically, working with, putting a walk-in freezer, rescue food, and then Magic Brewing has a Make Beer Not Waste recycling project, where they are trying to get closer and closer to, zero waste. So one of their big streams they have left are these woven polypropylene bags, so they want to buy a small, baler to, those were both, moved forward for funding.
Okay. Next item.
And the last was the environmental enforcement update, so I don't have any comments on that, it's very short, it's only 2 months on here, but if you have any questions, then we can.
Questions? All right, thank you. Policy committee members' comments. Any comments? It's been a long meeting, so. All right, very good. So the upcoming policy committee meeting then, the next regularly scheduled meeting will be Wednesday, May 18th at 3 o'clock. Do note the time change. Here, it got a lot quieter as we moved through the meeting, Greg. Appreciate you taking care of that. We all, there's construction in the building. All right, is there anything else for the good of the cause? All right, very good. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. So moved that we adjourn. Second.
Karen seconds. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you.
Yep.